Subcommittee on Wednesday, the 24th of April. My first item on the agenda is the election of chair for the meeting. Can I have a nomination, please, for chairman of this subcommittee? Declare that Stephen Ferguson, Councillor Stephen, chair of the subcommittee. Thank you.
Thank you. Do members have any interests that they wish to declare? No interests. Okay, welcome everybody to this meeting. My name is Councillor Stephen Ferguson and I'm the chair of this licensing subcommittee hearing. Before we start, I'd like to remind you of a few housekeeping arrangements. If you wish to speak, please can you indicate that you wish to do so and only speak through me. When you do speak, please make sure you use the microphone. I'm sure we'll have some toing and froing with technology, but you press the big button in front of you. But always please make sure you use the microphone. In the event of a fire alarm sounding during the meeting, please stand and follow the meeting administrator to the fire evacuation point outside the building, which I think is the car park outside. This meeting is being filmed on the Council's YouTube channel for live and subsequent broadcast. The whole of the meeting will be filmed except where confidential or exempt items are being discussed, which I don't think there are any today. Thank you. In the room with me today are the following people. Councillors Clark and Jordan, either side of me, who are members of the subcommittee. Elizabeth Lanlahin, who is the Council's legal advisor, and our Democratic Services team. I will now ask officers and licensing team to introduce themselves.
Good morning, thank you. I'm Michelle Bishop, I'm the licensing manager.
Good morning, William Della Refice, I'm the licensing officer.
Good morning, I'm Melanie Draper. I'm an environmental health officer and I have been consulted on the licensing application.
Thank you. So would those of you representing the applicant please now introduce yourselves? Please state your name and in what capacity you are here to represent the applicant.
My name's Alan Souter. I'm president of the Comrades Club.
My name's Rob Goodwin and I'm HR advisor to the Comrades Club.
My name's Sophia Mayhew and I'm the secretary at the Comrades Club.
Thank you and welcome. Would any responsible authorities in attendance please introduce themselves? Don't have any. No. Thank you. I'll now ask the interested parties to introduce themselves. Please state your name and who you are representing. Please also indicate if you intend to address the subcommittee this morning.
My name's Anthony Saunders. I live close to the Comrades Club. I will not be speaking, although I have comments, so I don't know how that will play out.
There's an opportunity to ask questions if you need to.
Thank you.
Keep your hand on it until the red light comes.
It is on.
My name is Amelia Saunders and I'll be speaking on behalf of myself and also on behalf of Irene Dernian.
My name is Mrs. Saunders and again I'm a resident in the area and I'm not planning on speaking but do have some comments.
My name's Kate Radford. I'm a local resident and I will speak if any further comments haven't been addressed.
Thank you. Is there anyone else I haven't covered? I don't think so. Okay, so item number 4 is licensing subcommittee procedure. You will have received within the hearing papers that were circulated to you a copy of the licensing subcommittee procedure. The hearing will commence under this procedure. Any representatives that have been made should be Any representations that have been made should be relevant to the 4 licensing objectives, which are the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, the prevention of public nuisance, and the protection of children from harm. Do any parties have any questions of clarification at this stage? This should relate only to the procedure. No. So could you switch your microphone off? It's going to be irritating with the red lights going off, but thank you. Thank you for doing that. So item number 5 is the hearing. I will now invite the licensing officer to present the application.
Thank you, Chair. Huntingdonshire District Council, as the licensing authority, has received an application to vary a premises licence from Mr. Alan Souter on behalf of God Manchester Comrades Club and Institute Limited for the premises, the Comrades Club, 58 Cambridge Street, God Manchester, PE 29 2AY. The application was received on the 4th of March 2024. As required under the Licensing Act 2003, notice of the application was advertised by blue notices displayed at or near the premises from the 5th of March 2024. The 28-day consultation period ended on the 1st of April 2024. A copy of the application is attached as Appendix A, and the plans supporting this application are attached as Appendix B. The variation application is applying to increase the licensable area to include the outdoor car park and to allow for the following activities to take place in this new area, which will be in addition to those activities permitted by the current license, which is attached as Appendix C. So the activities that have been applied for are supply of alcohol for consumption on and off the premises, Friday, Saturday and Sunday, 12 o'clock to 2200 hours, May to September, and the seasonal variations are Bank Holiday Monday, 12 o'clock to 9 o'clock. Provision of recorded music outdoors have been applied for Friday, Saturday and Sunday, 3 o'clock to 9 o'clock. However, on this report, I would just like to point out that there is a small typo which does say 10 o'clock, but to clarify, the application is for 9 o'clock. And that is Section B, provision of recorded music outdoors. This has been applied for as summer months only, and the seasonal variations indicate Bank Holiday Monday, 3 o'clock till 9 o'clock. The provision of live music outdoors, Friday, Saturday and Sunday, 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. Again, applied for as summer months only, with seasonal variations to include Bank Holiday Monday, 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. Section 16 of the application form addresses the 4 licensing objectives. Any proposals made in this section are normally translated directly into enforceable conditions that will be attached to the premises license. Paragraphs 8.41 to 8.49 and Section 10 of the Home Office Guidance issued under Section 182 refer to the operating schedule and license conditions. As part of the consultation, the responsible authorities, as determined under the Licensing Act 2003, were consulted on the application. Their responses can be seen in summary at Appendix D. Please note that the comments from Environmental Health have not formally been agreed with the applicant during the consultation period. During the period for representation, a total of 17 valid representations were received from other persons. The representations and any subsequent correspondence are attached as Appendix E, online and email, and Appendix E, letters via post. During the period for representation, a total of 5 letters of support for the application were received from other persons and are attached as Appendix F. A person who has submitted a relevant representation is entitled to address the licensing subcommittee at the hearing and ask questions of any other party appearing at the hearing. Not all matters raised within the representation may be relevant matters for consideration under the Licensing Act 2003. The licensing authority must carry out its function under the Act with a view to promoting the licensing objectives. Each objective has equal importance, and the objectives are the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, the prevention of public nuisance, and the protection of children from harm. The subcommittee must also have regard to its statement of licensing policy, any statutory guidance issued under Section 182 of the Licensing Act 2003, the Human Rights Act 1988, and the Live Music Act 2012. The Council must also fulfil its obligations under Section 17 of the Crime and Disorder Act 1998 to do all that is reasonably possible to prevent crime and disorder in its district. In making a decision, this application must be determined on its individual merits, having regard to the representation and supporting documents included as part of the report, along with additional information considered relevant at this hearing. As part of the decision process, the subcommittee is required to give its reasons for any decision arrived at. Where the licensing authority considers that action under its statutory powers is appropriate, it may take any of the following steps: grant the license as applied for, refuse the application, add additional conditions to the premises license, exclude any licensable activities applied for, amend dates and times of licensable activities applied for. Any decision made by the subcommittee must be reasonable and proportionate and promote the licensing objectives. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So now I'm going to invite members of the subcommittee to have any questions for the applicant. I've got a couple to start with. So in the application you just talked about summer months. You also mentioned May to September. What is the definition of summer months?
Thank you, Chair. So it's included within the report as that's what was applied for. However, it's not been specified by the actual applicant, so that will need to be determined in this hearing.
Thank you. And could you just clarify the typo, the 9 p.m. typo? Exactly what was that, so I can just change my notes? Thank you.
Certainly, Chair. So under Section 2 information, you've got bullet point B, provision of recorded music outdoors. So what was applied for was Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, 1,500 hours to 2,100 hours, but it was pointed out there is a typo.
Do you have any questions?
Just for clarification, over car parking, can you clarify that car parking is not a licensing issue?
Yes, I can confirm that doesn't form part of the licensing objectives.
Can I ask, is it a new premises license or is it a vet to vary the existing one? Because number 1.1 says it's a new premises license. Sorry, yes.
Yes, to confirm, it's an application to vary a premises license. So there's already an existing license in force, and that's attached as Appendix C.
Thank you. Any more questions?
Do any officers present have any questions for the applicant? None? We don't have any responsible authorities. Do any of those people who have made representations have questions for the applicant? These are just questions. You'll have an opportunity to make statements later.
Just had a question to clarify about the car parking that you raised. Can I ask that? So would car parking be classed as a public nuisance if there's no available parking, it then goes onto the street?
Yes, it would be, but in terms of parking, it is not an issue that the licensing subcommittee can decide on whether the premises can have patrons that park. But if it's a noise nuisance issue, then environmental health and so on can deal with that. But it really has to strictly relate to the premises itself, so not parking, as an issue.
But presumably, if the car park is taken away and the cars then park on the street, that becomes a public nuisance if it's blocking people's driveways.
No, public nuisance doesn't involve car parking and traffic issues outside of the property. We deal with lots of these, and it never does.
Okay.
I have a question. Would it count as public safety because some of the cars have been written off because the car park can't be used?
Again, I think that it's the same answer. That the premises license the application, just relates to the variation of the license for the premises, to be able to use the outside area, unless there's any sort of specific public safety issues that have arisen. That would only come after the public has been the applicant has been granted a license, for example. So it's not something that directly relates to the licensing objectives for the premises license.
Any further questions? Thank you. I will now invite, we haven't got any responsible authorities, so we will not do that. Oh, Mel, sorry, Mel. Sorry, would you like to address the subcommittee? Did you have any questions? Because I'll skip past you. Would you like to address the subcommittee? Is your microphone on?
Just a clarification. When I saw, I don't know if this is relevant for me at the moment, but when I saw the application, that was when my concerns were raised about the timings of the application, and it was every Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and the bank holiday, and that's why I raised the issues about the timings of the music. So that's my comment. That was my comment. Is that what you're asking me? Yeah. So I objected to the application on the grounds of the public nuisance would be the disturbance of the people living nearby, the residents living nearby. So I didn't think it was reasonable to have music every Friday, every Saturday, and every Sunday, and possibly bank holidays.
As to with regard to noise pollution, you had a suggestion also, I think, in your comments.
Yeah, I did have a suggestion. I did meet with after I had made this objection. The Comrades Club did ask me for a meeting, so I went to have a meeting with them, and we did come to an arrangement, if it's acceptable to everybody, is that they would have music one weekend a month, because we've got other we have other licensed premises across the district where we have agreed that there is one live music event a month. I mean, these are bigger pubs. These are typically larger pubs with larger numbers of clientele. But this is what we've decided as a team, and we're going to try and do across the district. I thought it was only fair that the Comrades Club also observed this. So I think what we agreed with Alan and his colleagues there is that they would have music on one Saturday and one Sunday a month. They would be at the same weekend, but which would be in line with the other premises across the district that we were working with, and but they did ask for just wanted music on a Sunday. Could they just have music on a Sunday? And I said not every Sunday, but we agreed it would be every other 2 Sundays a month, but not consecutive Sundays. That was what I would find acceptable, not consecutive Sundays. And it would be in a 2-hour period between 2 p.m. and 6 p.m. on those 2 Sundays. So there would be a total of 4 hours music per month, which I think is very reasonable. So that would be on Sunday afternoon. That was what the after some consultation we thought was reasonable, and it worked for the Comrades Club. Sorry.
You can clarify that 2-hour period.
2-hour period between 2 o'clock in the afternoon and 6 o'clock in the evening. So there would be a 2-hour period.
That's a 4-hour period, doesn't it?
Sorry, yes, but there would only be 2 hours music in that period.
I see. I understand. Okay.
Sorry. Yeah.
Okay. We're now at the stage where we have questions for the responsible authorities. Can I ask that the applicant mentions mitigation for the sound, that the music will take place in an awning? Do you have a professional view on whether that is substantial or appropriate mitigation?
It won't be substantial at all because we need solid. But you need solid walls to stop from noise. So it won't have any sound. It won't have any sound effects there. It won't have any noise attenuation. An awning, a tent doesn't. A marquee doesn't. It will just be. And however much we hear about, we're going to put this lining in it and that lining in it. It doesn't work. It would just we would just consider it as outside.
In a second, you can ask questions in a second. We'll come to you. With regard to the compromise that you struck, is that accepted by the applicant? I guess we can ask the applicant that in there. So that we'll leave that till then. Thank you. Any questions?
Sorry, did I make it clear about not consecutive Sundays? So there would be like one Sunday, then it would be a break on a Sunday, and then that Sunday, and it would only be 2 Sundays. So if there was a 5th Sunday, sometimes it falls in a calendar month, that wouldn't be acceptable. It would only literally be 2 Sundays a month, not consecutive Sundays.
Yes, I understand that. At the moment, it's only a suggestion, isn't it? And we'll see.
What we came to would be what I considered would be reasonable, and obviously we're here today to decide whether that is something that everybody can make work.
Okay, so just to make sure everybody's understanding, it would be either the 3rd and the 1st and the 3rd, or the 2nd or the 4th.
Whenever, yeah.
Just so that everybody understands that.
Yeah, okay. They wouldn't be like 2 Sundays on their own.
No, thank you for that.
Okay, do any officers present have any questions to responsible authorities? Do the applicant or his representatives have any question for the responsible authorities?
Just to say that, Ms. Draper, we were expecting you to let us see your notes before this meeting. You did undertake that, and they didn't arrive. So just to make that point.
Sorry about that.
Do any of those people who've made representations have any questions for the responsible authorities?
Yes. In the comments section on page 35, with Melanie Draper's comments, it says that the club will be able to rely on the Live Music Act. I just want some clarification on that. So even though you said you've come to an arrangement, if the area is licensed, will they still be able to have music every single weekend?
I'll leave that to my licensing colleagues. Thank you. That's something for them.
And can I just clarify that no arrangement has been come to? That's going to be the decision of this committee. At this moment, it's only advice. But repeat the question about the licensing, please. Music.
That Melanie Draper said that they could play music once a month. However, in her comments, she said that they could rely on the Live Music Act. And it's my understanding that if an area is licensed, they can use it whenever they would like to, every weekend, if that's what they want to do.
You're correct in saying that, but if they are able to listen to some of the representations that have been made, and if they're able to come to some sort of agreement, compromise that would assist everyone, then that's that would be in line with the license and objectives, and we will be able to put conditions, that are relevant, for the premises. But if they are, if it's always a good thing for the applicant to come to some sort of compromise, regardless of what they're allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do. The licensing subcommittee would obviously take into account all the representations and all the issues surrounding the license and objectives. Okay.
Explain what the provisions of the Live Music Act are. Do they mean that they can play music outside of this license?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So the Live Music Act essentially deregulates the performance of live music in a licensed venue. There are certain conditions around when that is appropriate. The timing can only go between the hours of 8 o'clock in the morning until 11 o'clock at night. Anything outside of that time period has to be applied for and licensed, and it must be for an audience of less than 500 people at any given point. And that's not taking into account the capacity of the venue, it's the capacity of the audience. So for instance, a building such as this, you could get 500 people in here and still have 250 people in the adjoining room. So it's the capacity of the audience, not the venue.
Do those provisions allow the playing of music outside of the venue, on the grounds of the venue as well?
So it doesn't specify whether it's indoors or outdoors. It's the delineated area of the premise. So if that includes a licensable area outside, the Live Music Act will apply to that area.
Any further questions?
So I think it's just worth keeping in mind that if you do, grant this, that they can play music anytime, and that, I don't think you can stipulate one Sunday. They can play anytime they like. And, for the residents, it will just be a nightmare. I'd just like to put that out there when you come to a decision. Thank you.
Okay, I'll now ask the applicant and his representatives to address the subcommittee for not more than 20 minutes and call any witnesses if relevant.
Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen on all sides of the House. I'll be making the representations on behalf of the club, but I will be bringing in my colleagues as and when necessary. And there'll be plenty of time for people to ask questions afterwards, because I do understand there's a lot of emotive stuff in here. A little bit of essential background. The Comrades Club has what we consider to be a proud tradition. We are 103 years old this year, so we didn't just arrive yesterday. Our club was founded originally by veterans from the Great War, so we have quite a history. We are non-profit making private members club, and in a typical year our membership would probably be around the 800 mark. Certainly 2024 is shaping up to be that way. We are both child and dog friendly in our attempts to build a family friendly social environment, and we provide a wide range of activities both to do with family and children, and also working towards helping out charities. And I just thought at this point I'd pass over to Alan Souter, our president. He can give you an idea, a flavour of the sort of things that we tend to do.
Thank you very much. We pride ourselves to be a community club, and in that case then we like to involve charities. At the moment we support two major charities which are cancer related in Macmillan and HCCN. We support the Macmillan Coffee Morning, and we've just recently done a fundraising for HCCN. We supply or put on a pantomime at Christmas, which we make a loss actually, but we intend to try and make a pantomime for the community of Godmanchester. We do all our children's parties, and we tend to be very favourable in our hiring rates. In fact, we do it normally hire free for any charity who would like to do a fundraising event in our club.
Thank you, Alan. Okay, the club is actually managed by a committee of 10, with the single exception of our secretary, Mrs. Mayhew. The committee are all unpaid volunteers. We get our income from a number of fixed sources. We get annual membership fees, usually around January, February time. That's when renewals come around. Sale of drinks, obviously, both alcoholic and non-alcoholic, plus related range of bar snacks. Sale of tickets for specific events. That tends to be a Saturday evening indoor event of one sort or another. And as Alan has already alluded to, we hire out our main hall as well, either for private functions such as weddings or parties. With the exception of 18th birthday parties, we don't do those for fairly obvious reasons. And we also hire out to small interest groups. For example, Slimming World have been with us for quite some time now. And the way My Waistline's going, probably quite some more. So other than a share of proceeds from the 3 on-site gaming machines that we have, that's it. That's where we get our money from. So it's a fixed pot. All of these income streams, without exception, dried up during lockdown. We were really on our uppers. And when you look at the other side of the balance sheet, thinking about our expenditure and our overheads, these would include salary and wages, not just to the secretary here, but we also have bar staff, a bar manager, cleaning staff, and a door person, doorman, to pay as well. And just as a footnote, the recent increase in hourly rate that applied from early this month puts our wages bill alone up by more than £8,000 a year. That's an awful increase. Energy costs, massive increases here. Everybody knows about this. I won't dwell on it. Purchase of drinks and snacks, etc., from our contracted supplier Heineken, they impose regular price increases on us, and we have a choice. We either have to try and absorb those or else reluctantly pass them on to our members. You can imagine that's popular. Then there's the cost of security, CCTV cameras, which we have both inside and outside the building, cash accounting equipment, maintenance contracts, insurances, you name it. And there's also the servicing of the bounce back loan that we were forced to take out during the worst of the COVID excesses. Frankly, the list of outgoings is endless, and the club is struggling to keep afloat in light of these circumstances. So, outdoor entertainment using a purpose-made awning in the club car park presented a creative option for increasing both footfall and spend at a difficult time for the club. And that's why we originally introduced the outdoor live music sessions on Sunday afternoons during the summer of 2022. Perhaps I can pause at that point and pass you across to Sophia to give some details of the outdoor events we have run.
Thank you, Rob. You have to excuse my voice, sorry. So, as Rob said, the introduction of live music in 2022 was hugely beneficial for us and, in fact, a lifeline, to be honest. We saw a 100% increase in our sales on the Sundays where we had the outside area and the live music in comparison to Sundays before we had the outside area. With the rising costs of services and utilities, which amount to about 60% of our turnover now, we do feel that without the outside area, the loss of earnings would be in excess of about £10,000 a year and would be detrimental to the future of the club. We did put on in 2022 7 outside live sessions, all of which took place outside, and like I said, 100% increase in comparison to the Sundays without them. In 2023, we intended to put on 7 live sessions outside, but due to the typical English weather, we were forced to move some of our sessions inside with a dramatic drop in sales. As you can imagine, if the sun's not out, it doesn't quite have the same appeal. So we only actually held 3 outdoor sessions in 2023, which was a massive drop in our sales. We look at around 50 people to sit in our area and to watch the live music. So it's not a huge number of people, but even after the sessions finish, people will stay outside and it prolongs throughout the afternoon. So our balance sheet typically shows a loss or a break even. We have noticed after introducing the live music in 22, we saw a first surplus of around £5,000 for the club. So it is something that financially we do think we need. Thanks, Rob.
Okay, thanks very much. Okay, can I just turn our attention to the objections that have been raised now, because obviously we've been through these quite detailed way. While we do strive to live in harmony with our near neighbours, we do accept that this is not a popular move with some of those living nearby, and we quite understand the reasons for them making objections. I'm also a local resident, incidentally, so I think I know how they feel. Analysis of these objections has revealed concerns about three of the licensing objectives, really. There's noise nuisance, on which all complainants were unanimous. There's antisocial behaviour. I think about half of the people who submitted objections mentioned that. And then there are some smaller but nonetheless important issues, litter problems and car park issues, which have already been alluded to. There were no concerns expressed for licensing objective 4, which is the protection of children from harm. So we're just dealing with licensing objectives 1 to 3. We have no issue with the majority of genuine objections submitted. I would nonetheless offer the following observations, because I do think some of the objections are slightly weak, if not frivolous. I'm not mentioning names, incidentally. You mentioned, I think, 17 objectives objections had been received, but I note that 3 of those originated from the same household and family name in Cambridge Street. I think that rather skews the figures for a start. One objector, a temporary resident here only for a couple of months to support her elderly mother-in-law, states that the noise is very disruptive when we haven't even run any outdoor music events this year at all. The most surprising comments perhaps came from our next door neighbour, God Manchester Dental, who accused us, amongst other things, of disposing of litter, bottles, cigarette ash cans over the party wall during live events. This would be virtually impossible to achieve anyway, given that the awning prevents access to the said wall. And if you look at the photo at the top of page 51, you'll see what I mean. And we don't sell cans, so they're not ours. Also alleged, more worryingly, is that the outdoor area has been used for cannabis smoking and indeed dealing. This is categorically not the case. The club has a zero tolerance policy when it comes to drugs. And perhaps I can just read from our drug, alcohol and substance misuse policy. The possession, use or supply of illegal drugs is strictly forbidden within the Comrades Club. The club would have no hesitation in contacting the police where there is evidence that any individual, be it staff, member or guest, is found to be in possession, using or supplying illegal substances while on club premises, with relevant CCTV footage being provided as corroboration. I think it's fair to say that we are not on the radar of the police for any such events. Finally, they refer to loud music being heard while patients are being treated. I'm quoting them there. This is patently untrue. God Manchester Dental working hours run from 9 to 5 from Monday to Friday, with one Saturday morning session from 9 to 1 per month. Our live music sessions only ever take place on a Sunday afternoon, so it has no impact whatsoever on their business. Finally, and this is worrying because it is a perception that people may have, one objector commented that the police have been called on more occasions than I can list to intervene. Just to put the record straight, the reality is the police have been called to the club on just one occasion, 8th of December 2023. We are just not that sort of environment. Whatever their individual reasons for objecting to our application, guidance regarding licensing objectives makes one thing clear. Objectors must provide evidence that they have seen and or experienced an issue at first hand. I think that's an important point to make. We ask only that comments offered by objectors are reviewed with these criteria in mind. Before we finish, just some thoughts on key areas of concern. And these are the 4 that I mentioned earlier. So firstly, noise. We are obviously very acutely aware that noise is the main issue here, and we do have a huge amount of sympathy with the objectors. But the fact is that live amplified music is by definition noisy. But it is also permitted under the terms of the Live Music Act 2012, and we just heard a summary of what that covers. What is key for both the objectors and for us is that the noise is correctly managed within the hours permitted by the Act. The club has invested in a noise monitor, which is this beast here that I've just brought. So you can see it has a microphone on the end. And when linked to a laptop, this can produce graphs to illustrate noise volume throughout an event. This would be set to run whenever a live act conducts their pre-gig sound check, which all live acts do. This would then set the sound level, and once set, acts would be instructed not to subsequently increase the volumes agreed. Should they decide to do so, we're purchasing a separate sound level display unit, which will flash red if they go beyond the limit that was set on the unit. Ms. Draper is quite right in terms of the fact that it is an awning, it is a tent, and sound attenuation is difficult in those circumstances. However, we are relocating our live acts, as it were, against the far wall of the awning, so at least they're as far away as possible as they can be. Also, the speakers, of which there will be two at a typical event, will be angled away from the street, and particularly Cambridge Street, where the noise would be loudest. So we certainly are aware of the noise issue, and we're looking to manage that as best we can. Antisocial behaviour. I think this is a concern for a lot of people. All club members are known to us. We know where they live. We have their records, and they are all required to abide by club rules of conduct and behaviour. We operate Checks 25 to ensure that customers presenting themselves are old enough to be ordering alcohol, and we also keep a refusal record so that if people do turn up, we know who they are. In the rare event of unacceptable behaviour, sanctions would be applied to the individual concerned. One-off misdemeanours would merit an official warning, while a more serious or repeated offence would usually lead to the individual being banned from the club, either for a specified period, usually a year, or life, depending on the severity of the offence. We are active members of Pub Watch. I know that Sophia and Alan go along there, I think it's every other Thursday, isn't it? Once a month. And regularly share intelligence with other local licensed premises on matters of mutual concern and interest. While our business, quite frankly, relies on serving alcohol to members and their guests, we fully accept that some people may not know when to stop. We have made it clear to our bar staff that they are not to continue to serve any individual who has clearly reached his or her limit. Perhaps if I can actually read again from our drug, alcohol and substance policy. While the vast majority of patrons drink responsibly, there are occasions where an individual may be inclined to overpartake. In such circumstances, in line with the club's duty of care, Comrades Bar staff have been instructed to refuse further service to the person concerned. Should any friend or associate then attempt to buy that same person further alcohol, they would be asked to leave the premises and would subsequently receive a formal warning letter from the club. So we do what we can to police behaviour. In the event that we get a particularly unruly customer, we haven't yet so far, we do have a panic button that can be rung and the police would automatically be advised to call if that were the case. But as I say, we've never had to rely on that. It's not just about alcohol. We also publicise the availability of a wide range of non-alcoholic drink options. They are becoming more popular. Finally, mindful of the fact that people leaving the club at the end of an evening can sometimes be a little boisterous, shall we say, we put a reminder notice on the exit door to remind them to keep it down out of respect for our neighbours. So we are aware of the neighbours. We try and live in harmony with them as best we can. But equally, we are a business trying to survive. On the litter problems, we dismiss completely the comments made by Godmanchester Dental. We ain't the perpetrators of that. The club provides 2 litter bins in the car park area, together with ashtrays for our smokers. Interestingly, we reckon only about 1 in 10 of our members actually smoke these days. It's definitely on the wane. Some of those vape, but smoking is on the wane. We consider this sufficient for the area. Friday night food concession vans are responsible for bagging up and removing their own waste. But if residents have a problem with that, they should let us know. Car parking. This is always an emotive subject, particularly in a town like Manchester. If you're not familiar with it, many of the streets were simply not built with modern traffic in mind. It was more horse and cart. The club does offer a limited number of spaces in the car park, and just to pick up on something that was said here.
Mr. Goodwin, you've got 2 more minutes.
That's fine. That's all I need. Somebody picked up the fact that the car park will be taken up by the awning. In fact, only half of it will. There will still be 50% of spaces available. 60% of our membership live within walking distance of the club anyway, so they're unlikely to be affected. The nearest public car park is at the top end of Post Street. It's too far away to be a practical option, so not surprisingly, drivers look to local streets for parking. Like it or not, the streets represented by the objectors are classed as public roads, defined as repairable at public expense. And provided they don't block accesses or park in clearly restricted zones, drivers are perfectly entitled to park there. In closing, we would like to stress that we are always receptive to approaches from our neighbours. Interestingly, they do not contact us. If they have legitimate points they'd like to raise with us, in the words of the old cliche, our door is always open to provide an opportunity for productive dialogue. Please talk to us. That brings us to the end of our representations. Thank you all for listening, and we'd be happy to answer any questions that may arise.
Thank you. Could you define what you mean by summer months in your application?
Alan? From the point of our Sunday, what we call Sunday sessions, it would run from the second week in July to the first week in September. That's for our entertainment. For the point of the awning going up, it would probably be from May until September. We wouldn't be looking to put entertainment other than on the second week in July to the second week in September.
So we heard some suggestions from our environmental health representative about reducing the number of occasions in which you would play live music. Are you prepared to adapt your application to meet those concerns, or is it not something you want to do at this stage?
I think it's fair to say that our application was fairly ambitious, because I think we probably anticipated having a little bit of a battle to get anything. So yes, we're certainly open to negotiations. We do not want to upset our neighbours. At the same time, we want to try and achieve the best result for our club. But we're always open to a negotiation. We had a very productive meeting with Ms. Draper, I felt, when she came to see us recently.
So lots of this application and lots of the representations are about the live music, but as we've already seen today, and if you look at page 24 of your notes pack, that the no license permission is required for a performance of amplified live music between 8 a.m. and 8 o'clock and 800 hours and 2300 hours, and any day on premises authorised to sell alcohol for consumption on those premises, provided that the audience does not exceed 500. So actually, this application is actually for you to sell alcohol in the car park area, or to increase the licensed premises. And actually, if we grant that, and I look to licensed officers, then we'll be automatically giving that provision. And the only difference between this application and that application might be the number of people allowed to attend. So 500 will be the limit, I guess. But actually, looking through the application, whatever conditions we put on that are pretty irrelevant, are they not? Or I'm misunderstanding it?
Yeah, Chair, you've summarised that correctly. Your assumptions are correct.
Can I just say that, to give you an idea of actual figures, we're a small club. We would never get anywhere near 500. The normal average of people attending these outdoor sessions is 50. So it's a small bunch of people.
Mr. Jordan.
Thank you for your presentation. I just have a question. you talk about my first clarification is, do you have any live events on a Saturday?
We've always had a tradition of any live events on a Saturday being held in our main hall internally. So these Sunday outdoor sessions were a complete departure.
So we're talking about Sunday afternoons only?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I needed that to be clarified because of some of the objections may have given the impression that they for the whole of the weekend. And so I want to be very clear about what it is that we're talking about. Thank you.
I think you'll have an opportunity to ask questions in a second, so if we just stick to members, but we'll get to you. Thank you. Councillor Clark.
I'm not trying to be facetious. Sorry. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be facetious. But 100 years ago, this piece of land, what's the car park, wouldn't be in a car park. At what point did it be necessary to become a car park, and for what reason, other than a car park?
I don't think we really heard the question, Councillor. Can you speak up a little, because it's just not carrying?
Obviously,
Thank you.
100 years ago, this car park wouldn't have been deemed a car park. I suspect there might have been 2 cars in Godmanchester 105 years ago. So at what point in your period of being a Comrades Club was it deemed to be necessary to make it a car park? And where I'm coming from, every year there's more and more cars on the road, and I would suspect that it's more necessary for a car park than ever. Would you like to comment on it?
Firstly, to answer your question, I arrived in the club in the 70s and the car park was there, so I can't answer the fact when the car park was first a car park. I think I've lost my train of thought now.
Shall I pick it up?
Yeah, pick it up. Yeah.
Okay, sadly, none of us are old enough to know when it was designated a car park, but I see your point. The fact is, we're not obliged to provide parking spaces. We are in a position, fortunately, to be able to do so. Many clubs, such as ours in city centres, do not have any parking facilities at all. That isn't a defence, it's just a fact of life, unfortunately, and it does mean that people who need parking space will look to the surrounding environs to find one.
To add to that, the car park, we do own the car park, so it is a private car park for our members only. So it's not a public car park. So we by our members who attend our Sunday sessions, being local, they tend to walk. So the car parking isn't really a problem. And I'd just like to add that Godmanchester is quite a tourist. On Sunday, walk along the recreation field is popular, and many of the cars what are parked in streets are actually not at our venue, but they are walking the lovely views of the river at Godmanchester.
Clark?
Yes, another question. It was stated that there was only going to be the awning and it was going to be set right back. In the records, it says there is seating accommodation when you have those large performances. Can you comment on that? That take up a lot of room.
Yes, the awning is it's like a huge marquee, really, with an apex roof. and the live act would be situated at the very front of that awning against the party wall with Godmanchester Dental, and there are tables and chairs arranged cabaret style in the space in front of it. There is no dancing, it's not that sort of event, but basically people have tables and chairs to sit at within the awning as well.
Councillor Jordan?
Yeah, I mean, looking at this application, it is also to vary your alcohol sales, isn't it? You want a bar outside, and I'm not quite understanding why you need a bar outside when you've got a bar inside. So if you could just explain your rationale behind that and help us to clarify it. Thank you.
Sure. This was driven by two thoughts, really. One was that we were having difficulties with staffing outside. And the other was it's simply more convenient for people who are sitting listening to music to be able to walk to the side of the awning to get a refill of whatever drink they so required. So it's a pragmatic approach, really.
I'm just going to come back on that because it makes me wonder how you can not police it, but anybody, if you've got an open car park, could actually wander into that car park and get a drink. I mean, that in theory they could. And also, I know you say you've got 800 members. But
approaching that in a typical year, it's less at the moment, but people are late renewing.
Yeah, that I understand that. We've got a similar club in where
Sure.
but those members are then allowed to sign other people in. Do you have that sort of policy as
Yes,
well?
we do. We have a policy whereby if I wanted to sign Sophia and Alan in, I could do so. Maximum of 2 guests per member. I'm then responsible for their conduct while they're on site.
And can they they can purchase alcohol at the bar?
They can, but they will have to pay non-members prices, so it would cost them more.
Okay, thank you.
In reality, if I sign guests in, I tend to get their drinks for them because it's just much more straightforward that way. Our system relies on a card identity basis, like a credit card. The card allows you access to the club in the first place because the door is always locked at the front for security purposes. And our staff always check the CCTV camera if somebody buzzes the door. Because if they buzz the door, they have got a card. Therefore, are they a member or are they trying to come in without? As I said earlier, we know our members. All our staff will know who is a member and who is not. We would spot pretty quickly anyone who came in off the streets.
I appreciate that, but they're not actually going into the club, are they? They could walk into the car park and go to the bar that you're applying for and buy a drink.
But the bar staff would recognise. That's the point I'm making. They would know. Sorry, Ellen.
Oh, sorry. Okay, I'm just going to get some clarification on this from our officers.
Thank you, Councillor. Just to clarify that this is to vary a premises licence.
Yes.
The Comrades Club are choosing to operate as a club, as a members-only club, but they're not obliged to by the terms of this licence. If they were operating under a club premises certificate, then they would have to operate as a club and would be obliged to follow the rules of members only. Under a premises licence, they are able to serve anyone that they choose to, as long as they're of legal drinking age and are not intoxicated. But by choice, they are operating as a members club.
And what's the situation with the existing licence? Is that as a premises licence?
Correct.
Can I ask you about CCTV? You mentioned CCTV. What is the CCTV coverage like of the outside car park area? Do you have complete coverage?
Perhaps Sophia's best place to answer that one.
So we have 16 cameras around the club. We have 2 that cover the car park. They cover the entrance in and it would cover the awnings and it looks out onto Cambridge Street. We also have, can you hear me? Sorry. We also have cameras in and around the bar areas, smoking areas and the staff areas.
Do you have any idea how long those cameras hold their footage for?
5 weeks.
Would any officers present like to ask any questions to the applicant? Responsible authorities, would you like to ask a question? Would any of the people who've made representations, do you have any questions for the applicant? Go ahead, please.
Yes, it's just about the dentists. You discounted their statement. However, I believe they have emergency patients at the weekend, so their representation is still valid.
Interesting then that they didn't mention that in their deposition.
And their patients. They didn't specify.
They don't mention
emergency
anything at all about
patients.
emergency. I've been through that
If
with
you
the
could
fine
address
tooth
your
comb.
comments through the chair, please, and not to each other, so thank you.
That was not mentioned by Godmanchester Dental. If you read their deposition, there's no mention of it at all.
Thank you. Is there any further questions from applicants, from interested parties?
No, again, on the dentist, the wall, their actual boundary wall goes right along the whole of the car park. It's not just the awning, so anyone could sling something over there. I'm sure they probably have.
I'd like to make a comment as well about, you mentioned that that several numbers of interested parties lived at the same address. Those, from a licensing point of view, are all equal and valid interested parties, and we don't have to take them as one, and nor would we.
I still believe it skews the actual 17 figure. But,
but it's for us to make that decision. Thank you. Any further questions?
Sorry, I just have something to clarify on the car park. I have actually contacted the Comrades Club a while ago because they put bollards up outside the front of near where we live to stop people parking outside the front. So I have made contact about my car parking concerns, but they weren't addressed. In response to people using the local area for a walk, it tends to be during their functions that the streets gets incredibly busy because their car parks are full. And I've got photos of when they've got events on, their car park's totally full, and then the surrounding streets are totally full as well. I totally understand that it's a public street and people have the right to park there. However, there have been occasions where people have parked very inconsiderately. Driveways have been totally blocked during events, and local residents can't actually leave their own property on some occasions.
If that were me, I would feel equally aggrieved. Quite honestly, I don't think that's acceptable. And I think we did say that parking on streets has to be within observed zones and certainly not blocking any access. I'm quite concerned that you say that we haven't addressed your concerns. Would you like to tell me what your concerns were? Because it's the first I've heard of it.
A few years ago, I think you put some bollards up to stop people parking outside the front of your property, and I queried why you'd put them up to stop people parking there, because it exacerbated the parking problem and made then more people were then parking on the street because of these bollards.
Yes.
The only reason we had to put the bollards up was because we had trouble with our deliveries. So we have quite a big dray lorry that comes in and it has to swing round. So we had cars that were parked in the entrance to our car park, which actually meant that we missed a few deliveries on occasion, which is why we put the bollards up.
I think on parking, this not, as we've described, we've discussed previously, is not really one of the 4 licensing objectives. So if it's about parking policy, then I don't think I'd like to hear any more questions on that, if you don't mind. Thank you.
May I? I think it was Chancellor Jordan. Jordan. I think you said about the music. Just being on the Sunday. If you look at the actual application, page 18 of 62, it's Friday, Saturday, and Sunday music outside, not necessarily live, but music outside through the speakers. So still loud, very intrusive music for us. Okay, thank you.
It's a good observation, because as I said previously, as far as I can see, if we grant an alcohol license for the premises, we are essentially granting a music license outside anyway. Part of the only limitation being the number of people that can attend. So, yeah. So actually, I think that whatever conditions we put in place would be difficult to enforce from that point of view. So.
I took Councillor Jordan's question to be concerning the live music element, but that's probably my mishearing. To reassure the objectors on the right-hand side, we have discussed with Ms. Draper ways in which we could moderate our requests for timings for live music. I think it highly unlikely we would be running live music on each consecutive evening. It just wouldn't be worth our while to do so. So we have put forward some proposals on where we would see room for movement, if that's of any help.
Do you have any proposals for the reduction of live music at all, or is it just
I don't really see how we can reduce to less than one a month. It just wouldn't be anything like worthwhile. Well, 2 a month is what I understood that we had.
So have you agreed? You've agreed that, and you're happy to
Yes,
agree that going
we've
forward?
discussed this with Ms.
Okay.
Draper, but we're treading a fine line here because there comes a point at which this is not cost effective, as I'm sure people would realise, because of market forces. We're just trying to survive. That's all we're trying to do.
It's weather related.
Yeah, and my colleague has reminded me, and I think Sophia already said, it is weather related. Unfortunately, with the vagaries of the British weather, in the first year we only managed to get 3 outdoor events in any event. So that's the environment we work with.
Okay, so can you just clarify on a Saturday or Friday or bank holiday, do you have amplified music being played in the car park?
Not as a matter of course, no. There would need to be some sort of event for that to happen.
Right.
There is a difference between intending to run it every Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and having the facility to be able to do so on occasion. I'd like to make that distinction. We're not looking to have wall-to-wall music and party going all weekend, every weekend. It's just not the case. That would be irresponsible, and we're not.
Are there any further questions before we move on?
Will we get a chance to actually put our side?
That's what we're going to do next, yes.
Okay.
I will now invite interested parties to address the subcommittee for no more than 20 minutes in total between all of you, although I use my discretion on that. May I remind you that your representations must be relevant to the 4 licensing objectives.
Okay, I'm first going to speak on behalf of myself and then on behalf of Irene Dernian. And I have several photos that I'm going to hold up which support my points, and then I can pass them for you to view and ask any questions about once I've finished voicing my points. So, having read the license variation proposal, the Comrades Club mentioned that COVID has affected their business.
Sorry, can we see those photos first?
I'll hold them up as I'm going along, and then you can look at all of them when I'm finished.
First, please.
Okay, I have.
Should they not have been submitted in advance?
These were submitted in my proposal, and I've also emailed them to the council.
Let's just take a 3-minute adjournment while our legal counsel looks at the photos. Thank you.
They're not there, they're not.
So thank you. Firstly, apologies that my 3-minute adjournment turned to quite a lot longer than that. For anybody watching, there was one of the interested parties wanted to present some photos which weren't presented to all parties during the application period, and so we required consent from all parties in order to have those photos passed around. We did not get that consent, and so we're not going to have those photos passed around, and myself and the other subcommittee members haven't seen them. Could you then give you the opportunity to start your representation again? Thank you.
Okay, so I'm first going to speak on behalf of myself and then on behalf of Irene Durneen, who lives at 1 Linden Grove. Having read the licence variation proposal, the Comrades Club mentioned that COVID has affected their business. Therefore, they are seeking to move outside, being allowed to play loud music from the hours of 2 p.m. until 9 p.m. during the summer months. However, I would like to mention that COVID has affected many businesses and employees, with many more people now working from home, making it even more vital that outdoor areas are kept quiet. For the last year, I myself have been working from home, and I found the noise from the Comrades Club, which lasted from May until September, extremely intrusive. I personally saw the police turn up on a number of occasions to deal with unsociable, disorderly, and often dangerous behaviour occurring after an outdoor event was held. The behaviour included screaming and fighting, often leading to broken glass being left in the car park, posing a hazard to anyone walking through the next morning, especially young children who walk through the car park en route to school. Under environmental law, a noise nuisance is defined as something that affects the enjoyment and use of a person's property. I've read through the representations, and there are 17 objections, including my own, which mention the impact on the enjoyment and use of their properties. Additionally, on the government website under noise guidance in relationship to planning and licensing, it states that noise that results in regular changes of behaviour is unacceptable and should be prevented. Over the last few years, I, like the other objecting households, have been forced to stay indoors and close all windows on hot summer days, forcing me to alter the way I work and go about my day. The government form, which I've attached, there is a PDF which I can show you, also states that noise which causes psychological stress should be prevented. I can imagine that any patients attending the dental office next to the Comrades Club would experience psychological stress from the loud music and drinking, which results in disorderly behaviour. I'd also like to note the club's attitude to their application and concerns from neighbours. A few days ago, I saw a poster displayed on the Comrades Club's Facebook page advertising summer sessions to be held al fresco. It states, "Relax in the garden, outdoor bar, benches and parasols for sun worshippers, or chill in the shade under our spacious gazebo." I think this really highlights the club's discourteous attitude to the surrounding neighbours, as they've already started planning outdoor events prior to this meeting being held and being granted permission to licence the car park as a venue. Secondly, and perhaps equally as important, the club have constructed a self-contained unit where they sell alcohol, which they've called the outdoor bar. And you can see page 51 is before the outdoor bar was put up, but it's a large space next to where the current shed is. COVID relaxed the rules regarding outdoor shelters and awnings. However, this building has both plumbing and electricity and remains in place for the whole year, rendering it a permanent structure. Under the government's planning permission guidelines, a building that will be used for commercial purposes cannot be moved, or as a self-contained unit requires planning permission, even if it's a shed. When the club built this, they also dug up the car park to lay underground cabling which powers the kitchen units inside the outdoor bar. COVID beer garden rules allowed for gazebos and awnings without planning permission. However, planning is still required for any structure with advertising on it. As you can see on page 51, in the top photo, the awning has the Comrades Club written on it and can be viewed from the road. It also has logos of several drinks companies. This renders this structure an advertising site, which should have required planning permission. On the club's current premises licence, under the mandatory section, it states that irresponsible promotion which encourages the sale of alcohol is not permitted. I would consider the large adverts for alcohol displayed on the awning a form of irresponsible promotion. On the Huntingdonshire District Council's website, under Public Access to Planning Records, it shows that the Comrades Club did not apply for planning permission for either the self-contained unit, the underground wiring, or the outdoor seating area and gazebo, which is an advertising site.
This is not. Planning is not one of the licensing objections, so I'd be helpful if you could skip past that part,
Okay.
please. Thank you.
This was just to show their disregard.
Thank you. I think that point is taken. Thank you.
Another safety concern I'd like to mention is that removing access to the car park causes a lot of traffic on St Anne's Lane, which is the road directly behind the Comrades Club. Several other representations that were in objection also mentioned this. I do not have proper off-road parking, so I used to park here during the summer and can attest to the fact that when the car park is being used as a venue, the road is extremely difficult to navigate. I've also been asked by Irene Durneen to speak on her behalf. She lives exactly 60 metres away from the Comrades Club and has written a representation objecting to the licence variation. And you can see her comments on page 44, 45, 46 and 47 of the agenda reports pack. In her representation, she objects on noise grounds and safety issues, and she mentions the letter delivered by the Comrades Club to the local residents, including myself, on the 15th of March, although it's signed the 14th. This letter was only delivered once the club were informed that a neighbour had objected to their proposal. And I'd just like to direct the committee's attention to some points that the club made, which you can see on page 46 and 47. In the bullet points, it's written that performers will be placed under the awnings to reduce noise. However, if you look at the previous photos which I've shown you, the awnings are no more than sunroofs and do nothing to reduce noise, and is misleading to suggest that they do. In fact, most of the time, the loudspeakers are outside of the awning, along with the singers. In the letter, it's also written that the sale of alcohol will not affect the neighbours, which again I find extremely misleading, as it will most definitely affect all the surrounding neighbours, as I've already mentioned, leading to an increase in unsociable, disorderly behaviour. But on top of this, the club writes that the sale of alcohol will be in keeping with the current licence, when in fact they currently do not have a licence to sell alcohol in the car park. Their licence variation application is seeking permission to extend the sale of alcohol to the car park. They've written under section 13 of 18 on the application on page 20 that they would like to sell alcohol on and off the premises, when currently they only have a licence for selling alcohol on the premises. I find it very deceptive to send a letter round to the neighbours with incorrect information on it, asking for us to support their application. Furthermore, on the Comrades Club's current licence, it actually states that windows should be kept closed during live performances to protect the surrounding noise-sensitive area. So I think moving from the indoor area, which is a very large space with a purpose-built stage for live music performances, which I imagine would be the envy of most clubs and pubs, to an outdoor area with no sound reduction properties in the middle of a dense residential area is a massive and unnecessary leap. A noise-sensitive premises includes areas used for residential purposes and hospitals or similar establishments, such as dental offices. Directly adjacent to the Comrades Club is a business office on one side and a dental office on the other, and surrounding it are many residential houses which will all be affected by the noise. If the application is approved, the club will be able to rely on the Live Music Act, as mentioned by the Huntingdonshire Environmental Officer Melanie Draper, which her comments are on page 35. This act is unregulated and will mean that music could occur every single Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Bank Holiday Monday if the area is licensed, and will affect the lives of all surrounding neighbours. If you look at page 17 of today's Agenda Reports pack, the club has also selected that yes, music schedules are subject to change if the application is successful, which means that music could be played even later. Therefore, I would ask that the application to vary the premises licence is fully denied. And I'd just like to finish by again drawing attention to another point listed on today's agenda, which is the Human Rights Act. Under Act 1, Protocol 1 of the Human Rights Act, under protection of property, it states that every person should have the right to peaceful enjoyment of their possessions. Allowing the Comrades Club a licence to use the car park for music and alcohol will deny all the local neighbours this right. And thank you for listening and taking into consideration my and Irene's points.
Do any members have any questions for Ms. Saunders at this stage? Any officers? Responsible authorities? Would the applicants like to ask any questions of?
There's a lot in what you've just heard there. Firstly, to acknowledge we are not unique in being affected by COVID. We fully recognise that affected people both on an organisational and, as you said yourself, a personal level. I'm concerned that you mentioned police reports of call-outs. We have no knowledge of these. Do you have any photographic evidence of that?
I do, yes, and you actually saw it a minute ago.
Why did you not submit that? I'm just wondering.
I did. I submitted it as a safety concern by email, but I was just told that I'm not allowed to show that photo.
Right, but if you submitted it to the council within the time frame, I'm wondering why it wasn't in the pack, because we'd be quite happy to look at it if it was.
I think it's because I emailed it as a separate email to the council saying that this was a safety concern I have, and perhaps it wasn't included in the pack because it wasn't clear from my email that it was for my representation. But I did email this photo in the time period.
Can I, looking through the responses from responsible authorities, did we have any representation from the police at all on this?
No representations from the police.
That's along the lines of what I was going to ask. Just wondering if there was persistent call-outs with our current licence already in place, would that not have flagged up something from licensing?
So just to clarify, obviously, the police was consulted on this application, and I can confirm that they haven't put in representation or any objections. Obviously, the licensing authority itself is also a consultee in a separate officer, and they've also made no concerns regarding this application.
Okay. Once again, you mentioned the Gob Manchester dental people, and I've been through the notes in the interval. There's no mention of weekend working at all, and there's no mention of emergency appointments. So had they put that in, that might have made a difference, obviously.
Your comments to questions and not statements, please. So we're looking for questions at this stage.
What is your understanding of a live performance?
Well, you've put under your licence you're after live music outside, and for the last few years you have been having music outside, live. A live singer comes out with live speakers and they sing into the microphone for many hours, and this is what I would count as live music.
Okay, because just to make the distinction, we only ever put a band on internally, and we have a limit of 2 people externally. And invariably, they will be acoustic rather than electric in terms of amplification.
I don't understand what your question is. It's amplified live music.
which
As long
we're
as the singer
entitled
is
to play
there
under the
in
Live
person.
Music Act.
Yes, but you don't have a premises license currently for the car park. You currently only have your indoor area.
Accepted, yes, understand that, but I'm just saying that the Live Music Act, were we to, be in that situation, we'd be quite within the rights to do so.
That's what I've said. That's why I'm so worried that you're going to get this approved, because if it is approved, you will be able to play live music
Okay, let's
whenever.
not have a discussion across the floor, please. Your concerns, there have been live music performances in the car park area, before this date and outside of the COVID period. Is that correct?
Yes, and there's also lots of posts on their Facebook page with actual videos of the live singers, which you can refer to.
Any further questions, or should we move on to the next?
No, let's move on.
Thank you. Does anybody else would like to address the subcommittee? Yes, please.
I'd just like to add, as well as the obvious, you've got the noise meter to try and monitor the noise of the music, the live music. Also to take into account, obviously, if there's a bar outside, that will obviously, as well as the noise of the actual music, it will bring in a lot of noise from the customers, which could have, we discussed, be unlikely to be up to 500, but it will add to the noise level as well as the music. You've got the customers to consider as well. That can be members and non-members.
Sure.
Any questions for that representation? No?
No.
Would anybody else like to make a representation? Thank you very much. I'd now like to move to the written representations from those who have indicated that they are unable to attend today. These are set out in your agenda pack. Does anyone have any comments on the written representations received? So, and we have all read all of the written representations. Let me just confirm that. So first, members of the subcommittee, do you have any questions on written representations? No. Officers? No questions? Responsible authorities? Other interested parties, do you have any questions? No. Would you like to ask any questions about the written representations? No, thank you. So may I now invite the applicant or his representative to sum up the application for a period of no longer than 5 minutes. Please do not introduce any new evidence to these proceedings at this stage. Thank you.
I don't think there's anything additional we would like to add to what we haven't already discussed here. It does worry me that we are seen to be deceptive, I think was the word that was used. I don't like that term. I don't believe it applies. We try to deal with things with a straight bat. The other party put out a notice which says in big letters, oppose God Manchester Comrades Club. So I'm not sure who's being deceptive and who's not.
Was that piece of evidence in the agenda pack? So I specifically asked you not to introduce new evidence at this stage, and could you please?
I apologise.
Yeah, thank you.
But that's all we need to say, because all the information is in there. Just to reassure the objectors, we would have no intention of playing live music or amplified music even every day of the weekend. It just wouldn't happen. Perhaps our original application over-egged it in that sense. We're just looking for an opportunity to profit and put something in our coffers from these events, albeit they will be more occasional, even if it is granted, than they were before. But thank you very much.
Thank you, which brings us to the final item of this agenda for the public. So before we move on to item 6, exclusion of the press and public, the subcommittee will now retire to deliberate. The council's legal advisor will provide legal advice and will record the subcommittee's decision. We are unclear how long deliberation will take. Our decision will be sent to you in writing as soon as possible, but if you want to wait around, you are welcome to do so, and we will announce our decision. The choice is yours. All parties have the right to appeal to the Magistrates' Court within 21 days of decision. Elizabeth, is there anything else you want to add?
Apologies. If I may just clarify with the applicants that these are your proposed times for the live music in the application that you haven't offered. Are you offering any variation to
We've
that?
given our offerings to Ms Draper. She's aware of discussions on that point.
Okay, because that hasn't been clarified in this open meeting today, because the subcommittee will be making a decision based on this application unless you provide clear
Ms Draper,
clear
do you have the detail of
proposals,
what we discussed?
because those proposals will be relevant in their decision making.
Yeah, what we discussed on the 28th of March, I visited on 28th of March, and the outcome of the meeting was that the Comrades Club would consider 2 hours on a Sunday afternoon of live music. This would happen twice a month and not on consecutive Sundays. And it would be with a 2-hour period within the period of 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. So it could be 2 p.m. to 4 p.m., 3 p.m. to 5 p.m., or 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. And it would be 2 hours, 2 hours of music. There would be a break in between. Discuss that singers probably have a break in between, but the music would be for 2 hours on 2 Sundays a month, but not consecutive Sundays.
And what about the seasonal variations, like the bank holiday?
We didn't discuss the bank holidays.
So are you able to clarify then what you're in agreement with and what you're proposing?
I think the discussion was that if we wanted to put something on a bank holiday Monday, we could submit a tent.
How often does that happen then?
Again, that wouldn't be necessary if.
Sorry. Chair, if I could just clarify, obviously the application doesn't prevent the applicants from submitting a temporary event notice. They can submit up to 15 temporary event notices during the course of a 12-month period. So that can still be applied for as well.
Thank you very much for your time. We'll now retire to make our decision. Thank you.